Non-resident fellow at the US Study Centre joins me. James, a lot going on, including around impeachment. John Bolton emerging as a potential key figure. New York Times reporting he was told by Trump explicitly this claim that Trump wanted to withhold aid from Ukraine unless they got down and dirty on his politics, but he's unlikely to be able to testify to any of this.
Well, the manuscript of John Bolton's book has been released by someone in the vetting process in the White House, and it directly repudiates claims the President made. Ambassador Bolton, of course, a key figure in all of this is the President's National Security Advisor and somebody who has reportedly described what happened with the President's dealing on Ukraine as a drug deal. The thing about John Bolton is he is a lifelong Republican. There is no way he can be accused of partisan bias on this, and the Democrats are keen to get him to testify. But at this stage, unless they can get 4 senators to change their mind and agree to agree to the procedural vote to bring in new witnesses, it will not happen.
I guess the other point is if the impeachment is increasingly seen as just impacting the election and whether or not people believe it, will this hurt Donald Trump anyway? John Bolton, the words of his memoirs, or perhaps even him going out and speaking on the record about what happened?
Look, I think it would be significant if Ambassador Bolton spoke in this trial. Of course, it opens the door for other witnesses to be called, and the Democrats have talked about witness reciprocity. The Republicans have talked about witness reciprocity, bringing in Joe Biden to testify, bringing in Hunter Biden to testify. But to have a figure like John Bolton, National Security Advisor in this White House, testifying that he did not think the President was doing the right thing on this deal with the Ukraine. He was a guy who was right there in the room. I think that would be very significant for the President's impeachment. But you're right, the line the Republicans are running here is that this impeachment trial is election interference, that the Democrats are trying to take the President off the ballot, and it should just go to the American people to have their say and vote on who they want as their President.
Donald Trump, meanwhile, working on his Middle East peace plan, meeting with the Israeli PM and the opposition. It's one of his election pledges. The Palestinians are noting that they're not at the table, at least yet. Yeah, look, this is the deal of the century. It's been promised for nearly 3 years. It's been led by the President's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Many presidents have tried and failed to secure lasting peace in Israeli-Palestine affairs. You would say, based on the President's track record in foreign policy of over-promising and under-delivering, you wouldn't expect too much when this plan is released later tonight, Australian time. But there's one thing that intrigues me about this. This has been the most leaky White House we've seen in a long time, and yet not a single detail of this peace plan has leaked. And that perhaps tells you that there might be something to it. Right, so that gives you some hope. It's getting pretty late in the clock to solve what's such a fraught issue before the 2020 election. I mean, we're in the campaign already, basically, but you've got some hope there, James Brown?
Look, a little bit, and you've got to, you always come at this President's disruptive big plans with a little bit of hope. I mean, arguing against it, he hasn't had a good relationship with the Palestinians. His move on the embassy, his support of new Israeli settlements has not endeared him to the Palestinians. He cut off a number of US connections to them as well, including their presence in Washington. So they haven't been a player in this plan. Jared Kushner has done a lot of work trying to corral Arab countries in the region, what they call their outside-in strategy of building support amongst those countries that normally give financial aid to the Palestinians to try and get them on board. And of course, you've got the tension between the Israeli players who met with the President earlier today, Benny Gantz and Benjamin Netanyahu, and that perilous sort of political situation in Israel where they're going back to the polls for a 3rd time in March. So there's a lot of moving parts here. There's a lot of reasons why it won't fail before you even get to the history of these kind of deals just being so hard to execute.
Can I just get your thoughts in 30 seconds? Apologies, it's so brief, but the Australian government says evacuation of Australian citizens is complicated out of Wuhan, of course the Chinese city in lockdown over coronavirus. Other countries have plans. They're getting their citizens out. Does this seem strange at all?
Well, I think when you get to these kind of moments, everybody's trying to rely on the same assets and infrastructure, the same helicopters, the same planes, the same on-the-ground assets, and Australia
doesn't have as many diplomatic resources in Wuhan as the United States, for example, so we'll be trying to leverage support from other friends and allies, but it's going to be a difficult process to get people out and make sure they're clear of any contagion.
James Brown, thank you.